I mean, this debate feels kind of dead. It feels kind of dumb.
Okay, my man. I mean, you keep like throwing these little
It's
jabs and
not
like
just that. I mean, like what we're.
you said that like you're like, bro, you know, you're not a real man, you're not masculine. Then you're
I
like,
didn't
by
say
the
you
way,
weren't a real
I'm,
man.
I'm
When did
gonna
I
throw
say you weren't
little
a real
jabs
man?
at you like a
When did I
16-year-old
say you
girl.
weren't a real man?
You said that being I want to have children is
I
not
said
masculine.
men that don't want to have kids
Okay,
is
applying it.
effeminate.
Okay, applying that I'm effeminate, but yet you throw
You
out
see,
like little. Do you think throwing out little verbal jabs and like little petty insults every 20 minutes is masculine or feminine? That to me seems pretty effeminate. I'm just like, this debate isn't you're poopy pants. Like this doesn't seem like the most
yeah, that's
masculine thing.
exactly. Yeah, that's exactly
Doesn't,
what I
doesn't seem
said.
like the most masculine thing a guy could do. Uh, okay. Do you have more questions? Do you want me to get back to my questions?
Sure.
Okay. You look extremely defeated, but
Defeated. There's
I've,
nothing to be
I've,
defeated
I've
about.
enjoyed I've enjoyed the discussion.
The idea. I mean, this is about objective, standards for marriage. I thought you were going to be much more antagonistic to my position than you were. We agree on a bunch. I mean, it's like you're asking me to diagnose the marriage between your parents. I
That's
know
not what I'm
nothing
doing.
about that. We're talking about
Uh,
objective values and standards.
I'm trying to give you an example. Okay, let me just explain this one more time. So, the disagreement right now is we're talking about non-religious people who don't want to have kids. What are the qualifications for them to want to get when they should get married, right? So you outline a bunch of things, and one of
Yep.
the biggest things you outline is similar values. I'm trying to give you an analogy, an example of how you can have similar values with someone, but still have that marriage be a disaster. So then I follow that up by asking
So yeah, it got into compatibility. So yeah, you could have two people could be part of the same church and the same tradition and be incompatible together. Agreed.
okay, so we're going to add compatibility to that list, right?
Of course.
Okay, because earlier it seemed like you were fighting me on that.
Why would I fight you on
I
compatibility?
don't know, man. That's I have no idea. But okay, so let me ask this question because I think this is a good question. Would you encourage men, religious, non-religious, want to have kids, not have kids, to get prenups before they get married?
I would say if you're a secular man and you're quite successful, and you're again for secular relationships, I'm totally outside that context. I'm not sure how all that works, but yeah, maybe you should get a prenup. I don't know. I think that you shouldn't be getting married if you feel like you need to get a prenup personally.
Well, what about religious people who are also very successful?
Yeah, I don't think religious people should necessarily be getting prenups. That demonstrates a lack of trust with the partner.
But but religious people get divorced too. Lower rates than secular people, they still get divorced. So why would, if you're a very financially successful guy, why would you not get a prenup to protect yourself?
Because it's not about protecting myself. If I'm with a woman who I believe is the right one, we're making a long-term commitment into eternity. I'm not
Yeah, but
really
there's like
concerned
a
about a
20.
prenup.
I don't know what the percentages on religious people divorce. Let's just assume it's like 20% or something like that. But there's a 1 in 5 chance that your assessment of the situation is going to go wrong and you're going to get
Okay,
fucked. So why would you not protect yourself?
you could. I
But
just think it already demonstrates a lack of belief in the commitment of the other person.
yeah, when they're getting married, everyone believes it's going to work out. When my parents were getting married, they believed it was going to work out, right? The
Okay.
problem is that sometimes 10, 20 years later, things go a lot differently than you expect. It's kind of like you're starting a business. You believe your business is going to be successful, but 5 years from now, your business could be totally bankrupt, right? And that's why you got to protect yourself in various ways that you can. So, with the business type, it would be basically putting money aside or putting in savings so that if your business goes bankrupt, you're not completely financially fucked. With marriage, it would be getting a prenup so that and this is again, if you're a financially successful guy, so that if the marriage doesn't work out, even though you had the best of intentions, that you're financially protected. And I'm actually a little surprised that you're not like just completely in agreement about that. To me,
Well,
it
you
seems
can. I don't think it's that big of a deal. My point is that if you're picking somebody based on the right values and within a religious traditional context, I don't think a prenup is the first priority. If it's in a again, whatever your guess is as good as mine. You're creating a general context of somebody who's religious getting really, really wealthy and they're getting married. Okay, they can get a prenup. I would say I wouldn't want to marry somebody. I would be worried about divorcing me if it's just for assurance purposes or something like that. Okay,
but if I think someone said it in the chat, and I'll just take it at face value because it's
okay.
Andrew's chat. Someone said it's about 15% of religious people get divorced. If like it's this is not 0.01%, 15% of people who are in your same exact shoes get divorced. Why would you not protect yourself?
You can. There's,
But it doesn't seem like I know you can. I know you have that option, but it doesn't seem like you would encourage that option.
well, my only point, I'm not making a value judgment on getting a prenup or not. My only point is the way that it's generally talked about is, well, get a prenup. You never know if this hoe's going to leave you or if she's going to try to take half your stuff. And my point is that disposition in regards to relationships and marriage is coming from a place that is questionable about the commitment of one partner or another. And within the religious context, I think two people should be on the same page where maybe you don't need that prenup for reassurance. Can you do it? Yeah, you can. I don't think there's anything sinful about getting a prenup.
Do you think there's 100% chance that your wife will never leave you?
100% no.
Of course not, right? Yeah, you probably think what, like 80, 90% or something like that. You're confident, but yeah, there's a chance. So even if there's like a 1% chance, and like we established about 15% for religious people, why would you not, like, it doesn't hurt you in any way.
Because a prenup is
Why would you
almost
not
like a
protect yourself?
preparation for divorce. It's almost like a
Not
preparing
at all.
for it as like an inevitability. My point about marriage is making it a long-term religious vow
No one.
that is outside the concerns of just worldly financial concerns. This is, and so that's what the point is within the religious context. Marriage is a much more larger commitment. We're talking about, into eternity.
Right. And that
So,
would be fine if marriage only was done through the church, right? And the government didn't get involved. But the problem is when
well,
you get married.
well, yeah, you could get religiously married and not legally married if you wanted to go that route.
Sure, but
The
that's
only
very
thing that's
common.
important for us is the religious marriage.
But you guys, I'm assuming, did the state marriage as well, right?
Right.
Yeah. Like most people, right? That's very common.
Right.
Very few people are doing like private marriages. I think it's like a tiny percent. So for the sake of the argument, let's just focus on like the way. So the
Okay.
problem is that when you get married, even if it's through the church, the government gets involved, right? And 5, 10, 20 years later, if your wife turns out to be not someone who you thought she was going to be, which can happen.
That can
Hopefully,
happen.
hopefully it doesn't happen yet. That can happen, right? I don't know what you do for work, but let's just assume for this analogy that you're very financially successful. That can totally fuck you. That you could. I've heard so many stories of successful guys getting totally fucked just because they didn't get a prenup. So to me, it seems like a no-brainer. Like a no-brainer. If you're a successful guy, why would you not get a prenup? It seems like you're a little haphazard about it. You're like,
I
I
mean, you
wouldn't
could.
get
I just don't. To me, the focus on that is a very secular focus on the relationship, and so
but
that's
what
what it comes back to the religious context of like, what is the intention? What's the shared telos? What's the shared purpose and long term goal? Yeah, if you're super successful and you want it as assurance, I guess you can get a prenup. I
But if
mean,
if a marriage falls apart, the secular government is going to be the one that's going to play a role in determining. It's not going to be the church that's going to be the
agree.
arbitrator. It's going to be secular government. So you can't just say, "Oh, well, this is a secular thing," because if I get divorced, if you get divorced, if Andrew gets divorced, it's a secular government that's going to play a role. So we can't
Okay.
just ignore that. I think that's a crucial thing. Uh, I don't know. I mean, again, like to me, it feels like it's a no-brainer. If you're financially successful, get a prenup. If you're with the kind of girl who's not comfortable with that, she's like, "Hey, I don't want to get a prenup," then that's a red flag right there, and that's the kind of girl you should be very hesitant of getting in a relationship with, because that's not a good sign. Me and my girlfriend have kind of joked about this a little bit, but we have loosely entertained the idea of marriage. And I was like, hey, listen, if it ever does happen, I would definitely want a prenup. And she's like, of course, I totally understand. You've been working on your business for a while. If you have a girl who's like non-understanding of that, that's a red flag.
Yeah,
Even
I would agree with you. I'd say if you had a lot of money and then she was worried about it, I mean, it could be a red flag. I think it depends on the context. It depends on the relationship. Depends on the people. Maybe if you're in a religious framework, they would view that as a slight to them in regard to their honesty and integrity for the relationship. I don't know,
is
but
that
this seems like irrelevant, generally speaking, because I agree with you. If you have all that money, okay, get one if you want. That really isn't necessarily a sin or something like that in my perspective. So I don't know where you're going with like the ultimacy in regards to marriage. Like, why is
well,
this such
because I
a
think it plays into marriage, it's part of marriage. It seemed like initially when we started having discussion, your position was like, I wouldn't advise it, but maybe in certain situations you can do it. And now
yeah?
you're like kind of acknowledging its benefits. You're like, hey, listen, it's not that bad.
If you have, yeah, because you keep bringing it back to a secular context. If you're two secular people,
I'm not,
yeah,
I'm not,
get a
I'm not,
prenup.
I'm talking about religious people as well.
I know. And that's where then I would say it depends, because it's like, if you're making that commitment for eternity, you don't, a prenup shouldn't be the first focus on the
But we're not.
relationship,
Maybe you're strawmanning me a little bit right now. I'm not saying it should be the first focus. I'm not saying it's the
or
thing you should
a
talk about.
priority. We'll put it that way.
I'm saying it's something that you should do, like many other things. Like you should pay for your car insurance, something that you should do, just in case you're not planning on crashing your car when you're driving, but it could happen, right? And so, just like you're planning for that, you're planning for the small possibility. Again, 15% for religious people that you could get divorced on, right? And 80% of marriages are done, divorces are done by women. So therefore, it's probably not going to be you who initiates the divorce. Okay, like 4 out of 5 times, it's not going to be you. It's going to be the woman,
True.
right? So.
Agreed.
I think like I said, I think it's a no-brainer. I'm not saying it should be, again, like the thing you obsess about or like your number one priority. Obviously not. But I think, again, even for a religious person, like, sure, religious people get divorced at lower rates. I will fully acknowledge that, but 15% is still would be way too high for my comfort zone if I was a successful religious person.
Okay.
Can you understand that perspective?
Yeah, it's basically my perspective.